In the private garage of a billion-dollar tower, billionaire Victoria Langford collapsed beside the luxury sedan being serviced. No doctor, no assistant, only Garrett Marsh, a single-father mechanic with oil still on his hands. When she stopped breathing, lips turning blue, Garrett didn't hesitate. He leaned down, pressed his mouth to hers, and breathed life back into her lungs. But the moment her eyes opened, a voice screamed, "He's kissing her!" A life-saving breath had just pushed his world in a direction no one could have predicted. The fluorescent lights in the basement garage of Langford Tower hummed with the kind of monotony that made hours feel like minutes. Garrett Marsh had been working under the hood of a Mercedes S-Class for the better part of the morning, his hands black with grease, the smell of engine oil and rubber filling his lungs. He didn't mind it. This was his world. Quiet, predictable, and far removed from the glass offices 50 floors above where people made decisions that moved markets. He straightened up, wiping his hands on a rag that had long since lost its ability to clean anything. The rag went into his back pocket out of habit. His toolbox sat open on the concrete floor beside the car, each wrench and socket in its designated slot. Organization was survival when you worked contract jobs. One missing tool could cost you an hour could cost you the next gig. His phone buzzed. A text from Molly's school. Reminder about the field trip fee, $35 due by Friday. He exhaled slowly. $35. He'd make it work. He always did. The sound of heels on concrete pulled his attention. Sharp, deliberate clicks echoing off the low ceiling. He glanced up. Victoria Langford walked into the garage unannounced, which never happened. She always sent her assistant ahead, usually a young man in a suit who spoke in clipped, efficient sentences. But today it was just her. Tailored navy suit, diamond ring catching the light, expression unreadable. She moved like someone who expected the world to rearrange itself around her, and it usually did. Garrett straightened, dropping the rag onto the workbench near the Mercedes. He'd worked on her cars before, high-end European machines that required the kind of precision most mechanics didn't bother with. She paid well. She also didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Mr. Marsh," she said, stopping a few feet from the Bentley Continental he'd been prepping for her Dubai trip. Her voice was cool, professional, the kind of tone that made it clear she had somewhere else to be. "Ms. Langford." He nodded. "The Bentley's almost ready, just finishing the brake system check." She walked around the car slowly, inspecting it the way someone might examine a piece of art. Her hand trailed along the hood, fingers barely making contact. Everything about her was controlled, measured. "The last time I took this car out, the brakes felt soft," she said, not looking at him. "I need to know they're perfect." "They will be." He gestured toward the rear wheel. "Replace the pads, flush the lines, bled the system. You'll feel the difference." She stopped, glanced at him briefly, then back at the car. For a moment, it seemed like she might say something else. But she didn't. Instead, she placed a hand on the side of the car to steady herself. That's when Garrett noticed. The slight pallor in her face. The way her breathing had shifted, just barely, into something shallow. "You all right?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her hand pressed harder against the car, knuckles going white. Then her other hand moved to her chest, fingers splaying over her sternum. Garrett took a step forward. "Ms. Langford?" Her eyes widened, not with fear but with confusion, like her body had betrayed her and she couldn't understand why. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Only a sharp exhale, thin and strained. Then she dropped. Her knees buckled first, her body folding in on itself as she fell sideways. Her head struck the side panel of the Bentley with a dull, sickening thud. The diamond ring slipped off her finger and skittered across the concrete, spinning in a lazy arc before coming to rest near a drain. Garrett lunged forward, catching her just before her head hit the ground a second time. She was limp, dead weight. He lowered her flat onto the concrete, his hands shaking as he checked for a pulse. Nothing. He pressed his fingers harder against her neck. Still nothing. Her lips were already starting to turn blue. "Hey!" he shouted toward the far end of the garage, where 2 security guards stood near the elevator. "Call 911, now!" One of them pulled out his phone, his hands fumbling. The other took a step forward, then stopped. He stared at Victoria's body on the ground, his face frozen in something between shock and terror. Garrett tilted her head back, checked her airway. "Clear." He placed his hands on her chest, locking his elbows, and started compressions. 30 pumps, hard and fast. He counted in his head, his voice a low growl as he pressed down. 1, 2, 3. The heel of his palm sank into her sternum with each thrust. Sweat dripped from his forehead onto the concrete. His arms burned. He didn't stop. 30. He leaned down, pinched her nose, and breathed into her mouth. 2 breaths. Her chest rose, then fell. Nothing. He went back to compressions. 1, 2, 3. The second security guard finally moved, jogging over but stopping a few feet away. He didn't kneel, didn't help. "What are you doing?" the guard asked, his voice high and tight. "Saving her life," Garrett snapped, not looking up. "Where's the ambulance?" "They said 15 minutes. She doesn't have 15 minutes. He kept going. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. His hands were numb. His shoulders screamed. He could feel her ribs flexing under his palms, the sickening give of bone and cartilage. On the 3rd round, she coughed. It was wet and violent, her body convulsing as air forced its way back into her lungs. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. She stared up at him, her mouth half open, lips still pale. Garrett leaned back, gasping. His hands hovered over her chest, trembling. Relief flooded through him so fast it made him dizzy. "You're okay," he said, his voice hoarse. "You're breathing. Just stay still." Her eyes locked onto his. For a moment there was recognition, something raw and unguarded. Then confusion. Then fear. Behind him, footsteps. Fast and frantic. A woman in a sharp grey suit burst into the garage, her heels clicking like gunfire. She saw Victoria on the ground, saw Garrett kneeling over her, and her face twisted. "What the hell are you doing?" Claire, Victoria's assistant, shrieked. Her voice echoed off the concrete walls. "Get away from her!" Garrett stood up slowly, his hands raised. "She wasn't breathing. I did CPR." Claire dropped to her knees beside Victoria, her hands fluttering uselessly over her boss's body. She looked up at the security guards, her expression wild. "Why was he touching her?" she demanded. "Why was his mouth on her?" One of the guards shifted uncomfortably. "He said he was doing CPR." Claire's eyes narrowed. She looked back at Garrett, her face a mask of suspicion. "Did anyone see him do CPR, or did you just see him leaning over her?" The second guard hesitated. "I saw him. He was close to her face. He was kissing her," Claire said, her voice shaking. "Oh my God, he was kissing her while she was unconscious." Garrett's stomach dropped. "That's not— Get him out of here!" Claire snapped, pointing at him. "Now!" The first guard stepped forward, his hand moving to Garrett's arm. Garrett pulled back, his heart hammering. "I didn't kiss her," he said, his voice rising. "She had no pulse. I did chest compressions. I did rescue breaths. That's CPR." But no one was listening. The paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. They lifted Victoria onto a stretcher, checked her vitals, and wheeled her toward the ambulance. Claire followed, her phone already pressed to her ear. Garrett stood alone in the garage, his hands still shaking. The smell of oil and sweat clung to him. The diamond ring lay on the ground near the drain, forgotten. One of the security guards approached him, his face apologetic but firm. "You need to come with us," the guard said quietly, "just to answer some questions." Garrett nodded, numb. He followed them to a small office near the loading dock. They didn't handcuff him, didn't arrest him, but they didn't let him leave either. He sat in a plastic chair, his hands clasped between his knees, and waited. 2 hours later, they let him go. No charges, no apology, just a curt nod from the head of security, and a warning to stay available if they needed to follow up. Garrett walked out of Langford Tower into the late afternoon sun. His truck was still parked in the contractor lot. He climbed in, started the engine, and sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. Molly. "Hey, Dad, are you coming home soon?" He closed his eyes. "Yeah, sweetheart, I'm on my way." "Did you have a good day?" He swallowed hard. "Yeah, it was fine." He ended the call and drove home. Garrett didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment Victoria Langford's chest had stopped moving, the way her lips had turned that awful shade of blue, the sound of his own breath forcing air into her lungs. He'd done everything right. He knew he had. But Claire's voice kept echoing in his head. He was kissing her. At 6 a.m, his phone rang. Unknown number. He let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Same number. He answered. "Hello. Mr. Marsh, this is David Carter from Langford Industries Human Resources." The voice was flat, rehearsed. "We need to inform you that your contract with Langford Tower has been terminated effective immediately." Garrett sat up. "What? Due to a violation of professional conduct protocols, we can no longer retain your services. You are prohibited from entering Langford properties. Your final payment will be processed within 30 days. "Professional conduct?" Garrett's voice rose. "I saved her life. The decision has been made. If you have questions, you can submit them in writing to our legal department." The line went dead. Garrett stared at the phone. His chest tightened. Molly appeared in the doorway, her hair tangled from sleep. She held her stuffed rabbit by one ear. "Dad, are you okay?" He forced a smile. "Yeah, sweetheart, just work stuff." She climbed onto the bed and curled up next to him. He wrapped his arm around her, feeling the weight of her small body against his side. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and laundry detergent. "Did something bad happen?" she asked quietly. "No." He lied. "Everything's fine." By the afternoon, it wasn't fine. An email arrived from the Building Maintenance Contractors Association. They'd received a complaint. His name had been flagged. Pending investigation, they were suspending his access to their job referral system. He called his contact at the association, a guy named Tom who'd been sending him work for 3 years. "Tom, what the hell is this?" Tom's voice was tight. "Langford Industries has lawyers, Garrett. We don't. I can't help you." The line went dead. Garrett sat at his kitchen table, staring at his laptop screen. He opened his email. 12 unread messages. Most were automated, billing reminders, spam. But one was from a garage in Queens where he'd worked a few jobs last year. The subject line read, "Re-availability." He opened it. "Hi, Garrett. We saw the news about the incident at Langford Tower. We're going to pass on bringing you back for now. Hope you understand." He hadn't seen any news. He opened his browser and typed his name into the search bar. The first result was a video, 15 seconds long, posted 2 hours ago. Already had 40,000 views. He clicked play. The footage was grainy, shot from a high angle, security camera. It showed the garage, Victoria on the ground, Garrett kneeling over her. The angle was wrong. You couldn't see his hands on her chest. Couldn't see the compressions. All you could see was him leaning down, his face close to hers. Too close. The caption read, Mechanic kissed billionaire while she was unconscious. The comments were worse. Disgusting. Lock him up. This is assault. He took advantage of her when she couldn't fight back. Garrett's vision blurred. He slammed the laptop shut and pushed back from the table. His chest felt tight. He couldn't breathe. He walked to the sink, turned on the faucet, and splashed cold water on his face. His phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. You should be ashamed of yourself. Then another. Pervert. He turned the phone off. Molly came into the kitchen, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Dad, I need lunch money. He pulled out his wallet. 3 singles and a 10. He handed her the 10. Get whatever you want today, okay? She looked at the bill, then at him. Are you sure? Yeah. He smiled, but it felt like his face might crack. Treat yourself. She hugged him before she left. He stood in the doorway and watched her walk to the bus stop, her backpack bouncing with each step. The next 2 days were a slow-motion collapse. He called every garage he'd ever worked with. Most didn't answer. The ones that did gave him the same story. They'd heard about the incident. They couldn't take the risk. Sorry. One guy was blunt. Look, Garrett, I believe you. But if I hire you and word gets out, I'll lose clients. I got a family to feed. Garrett didn't argue. He just hung up. By Thursday, he was working cash jobs, oil changes in driveways, brake pad replacements in apartment parking lots, $50 here, 70 there, enough to keep the lights on. Barely. On Friday, Molly came home from school crying. He was in the living room, staring at his phone, scrolling through job listings that wouldn't call him back. She dropped her backpack by the door and ran straight to her room. He followed her. She was face down on her bed, her shoulders shaking. Molly, what happened? She didn't answer. He sat on the edge of the bed, his hand on her back. Talk to me, sweetheart. She turned her head, her face red and wet. Kids at school said you kissed a lady when she was asleep. His stomach dropped. They said you're a bad person. Molly, did you do it? Her voice cracked. Did you really kiss her? He felt something inside him break. He pulled her up and held her, her small body shaking against his chest. No, he said, his voice steady. I didn't kiss her. She was dying and I saved her life. I did CPR, that's all. Then why are people saying that? Because they don't understand, because the video doesn't show everything. She pulled back, looking up at him with red, swollen eyes. I told them you're a good dad. I told them you wouldn't do that. You're right, I wouldn't. She wiped her nose on her sleeve. I believe you. He hugged her again, squeezing tight. That's all that matters. But it wasn't. The following week, the video had 2 million views. Someone had edited it, zooming in on Garrett's face, slowing it down, making it look worse. A local news station picked it up. Mechanic under fire after alleged inappropriate contact with billionaire CEO. They didn't use the word alleged in the headline. Garrett stopped going outside unless he had to. He wore a baseball cap and sunglasses when he went to the grocery store. He avoided eye contact. He paid in cash. One afternoon, a man in a suit showed up at his apartment. Garrett opened the door halfway, his hand on the frame. Garrett Marsh? The man asked. Who's asking? I'm an attorney with Langford Industries. I'd like to discuss a settlement. Garrett's jaw tightened. A settlement for what? For your silence. We're prepared to offer you $50,000 in exchange for a signed NDA and an agreement not to speak publicly about the incident. You want to pay me to shut up about saving her life? The attorney's expression didn't change. We want to resolve this matter quietly. Get off my property. The attorney pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the doorframe. If you change your mind. Garrett slammed the door. That night, he couldn't eat. His hands shook when he tried to hold a fork. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. $50,000. That was almost 2 years' rent. Molly's school, food, medicine if she got sick. But it wasn't about the money. It was about them trying to erase what he'd done, trying to make him the villain in a story where he'd been the only one willing to act. He didn't call the attorney. 3 weeks after the incident, Garrett collapsed. He'd been working a side job, replacing the transmission fluid on a pickup truck in a mechanic's driveway in Brooklyn. The work was harder than the simple oil changes he'd been doing, crawling under the truck in the heat, wrestling with rusted bolts, his body already running on empty. It was 90 degrees, the sun beating down on the asphalt. He hadn't eaten since breakfast, hadn't slept more than 3 hours the night before. He stood up too fast. The world tilted, his knees buckled, and he hit the ground hard, his head bouncing off the concrete. The mechanic called 911. Garrett woke up in the hospital. The room was white and sterile, the fluorescent lights too bright. A nurse stood by the bed, checking his IV. "Welcome back," she said. "You gave us a scare." His mouth was dry. What happened? Dehydration, exhaustion, low blood pressure. When's the last time you ate a real meal? He didn't answer. The doctor came in an hour later, a woman in her 50s with graying hair and tired eyes. She pulled up a chair. "Mr. Marsh, your body is shutting down. You need rest. You need food. You need to take care of yourself." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're running on empty." She glanced at the chart. "You have a daughter, correct?" He nodded. "Then you need to stay alive for her. Understand?" He nodded again. They kept him overnight. Molly stayed with a neighbor. When he called her, she cried, "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart, just a little tired." "You're not fine." Her voice was small. "You saved someone and they're hurting you for it. That's not fair." He didn't know what to say. Because she was right. It wasn't fair. While Garrett lay in a hospital bed 3 weeks after the collapse, Victoria Langford had been home for nearly 2 weeks, recovering in her penthouse. It had been 2 days since she'd been released from the hospital. The doctors had run every test imaginable. Heart function was normal, no blockages, no permanent damage. She'd been lucky, they said. If someone hadn't performed CPR immediately, she'd be dead. She asked who had saved her. The attending physician told her it was a mechanic, a man named Garrett Marsh. Claire had been in the room when the doctor said it. She'd stiffened, her face going pale. "The mechanic?" Victoria asked. "Yes," the doctor said. "He performed textbook CPR, kept you alive until the paramedics arrived." Victoria looked at Claire. "Why wasn't I told this?" Claire hesitated. "We thought it was best to handle the situation internally." "Handle it how?" "We terminated his contract. There were concerns about his conduct." Victoria's chest tightened. What concerns? Claire didn't answer right away. Victoria's voice dropped, cold and sharp. "What concerns?" The footage was unclear. Some people felt his actions were inappropriate. Victoria stared at her. "He saved my life, and you fired him?" "Ms. Langford, we were protecting you." "From what? The man who kept me alive?" Claire looked away. Victoria sat in her penthouse now, alone. The view stretched out before her, Manhattan glittering in the evening light. Untouchable, powerful. Now it just felt empty. She kept seeing flashes, fragments of memory, the garage, the cold concrete, a voice, rough and urgent. "You're okay. You're breathing. Just stay still." She'd looked up and seen a face. Tired eyes, grease on his hands, concern in his expression. That face had been in the video, the one Claire had shown her, the one where Garrett Marsh was kneeling over her, his mouth close to hers. Claire had called it assault. The media had called it worse. But Victoria remembered something else. She remembered the feeling of air forcing its way into her lungs, the pressure on her chest, the desperate rhythm of someone refusing to let her die. She opened her laptop and pulled up the security footage, the full footage, not the edited clip that had gone viral. The leaked video had been cut from a single camera angle, grainy, shot from above, deliberately cropped to hide context. But the garage security system recorded from 3 different cameras, capturing every angle. She wanted to see everything. She watched from the beginning, watched herself walk into the garage, watched herself collapse, watched Garrett catch her before her head hit the ground a second time. Then she watched him work. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, over and over. His face was tight with focus. His hands didn't waver. The security guards stood there, watching, doing nothing. Garrett didn't stop. Victoria watched the video 3 times. Then she called her head of security. "I want the full incident report on my desk in 1 hour. Ms. Langford, it's 11 at night." 1 hour. The report arrived 53 minutes later. She read it twice. Tucked in the back was a note from the security supervisor. The diamond ring had been recovered from the garage floor 2 days after the incident, cleaned and returned to her office. She'd barely noticed when it had been placed back in her desk drawer. Then she called Claire. "Why did you tell me he assaulted me?" Claire's voice was careful. "I didn't say assault. I said there were concerns." "You said he kissed me." "The footage. I've seen the footage, all of it. He performed CPR, he saved my life, and you destroyed his." There was silence on the other end. Victoria's voice went ice cold. "Who made the decision to leak the video?" "That wasn't... Who?" Another silence. Then Claire spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Richard Porter. He thought it would protect the company's image." Richard Porter, Vice President of Communications, a man who'd been with Langford Industries for 8 years, a man Victoria had trusted. "Set up a meeting with Porter, tomorrow morning, 8 sharp." "Ms. Langford." Victoria hung up. She sat in the dark, staring at the skyline. Somewhere out there, Garrett Marsh was paying for doing the right thing, and she'd let it happen. She opened her phone and searched his name. The video came up first, then the articles, then the comments, thousands of them, calling him a predator, a criminal, a monster. She kept scrolling until she found a small blog post. Local news. No major outlet had picked it up. "Mechanic hospitalized after collapse. Friends say he's been struggling since losing work." The article included a photo. Garrett in a hospital bed, his face gaunt and grey. And standing next to him, holding his hand, was a little girl, maybe 9 or 10, dark hair, scared eyes. Victoria stared at the photo for a long time. Then she stood up, grabbed her coat, and walked out the door. Victoria Langford walked into the emergency board meeting at 8 in the morning, wearing the same navy suit she'd collapsed in 3 weeks earlier. She'd had it dry cleaned, but she could still see the faint crease where her head had struck the Bentley's door panel. A reminder. Richard Porter sat at the far end of the table, his expression calm. Too calm. He'd been with the company long enough to know when a storm was coming, and he'd learned to weather them with a smile. Claire sat 2 seats down from him, her hands folded on the table. She wouldn't meet Victoria's eyes. Victoria didn't sit. She stood at the head of the table, her hands resting on the back of the chair. 3 weeks ago I collapsed in the garage of this building, she said. Her voice was measured, controlled. A man named Garrett Marsh performed CPR and saved my life. Within 48 hours, that man lost his job, his reputation, and his livelihood. I want to know who made that happen. Richard leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. "Ms. Langford, we acted in the company's best interest. The optics of the situation were... The optics? Victoria's voice didn't rise, but the temperature in the room dropped. A man saved my life, and you turned him into a criminal to protect optics? The video was ambiguous, Richard said smoothly. We couldn't risk the narrative spinning out of control. A mechanic, a billionaire, physical contact. It had all the ingredients for a scandal. We controlled it before it controlled us. By leaking edited footage to the media. Richard's smile didn't waver. We provided context. You provided a lie. Victoria walked around the table slowly, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. You took 15 seconds of footage, removed the compressions, and made it look like he assaulted me. Then you fed it to every outlet that would run it. We protected your image. Richard said. And the company's. Victoria stopped in front of him. You're fired. The smile finally cracked. Excuse me? Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 30 minutes to clear your office. Richard stood, his face flushing. You can't do this. I've been with this company for 8 years. I've saved your ass more times than... 30 minutes, Victoria said. She turned to the rest of the room. Anyone else involved in leaking that footage can join him. No one moved. Richard grabbed his briefcase and walked out, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. The door slammed behind him. Victoria looked at Claire. You told me he kissed me. Claire's hands trembled. You thought wrong. You're not fired. But you're on notice. One more mistake like this and you're done. Claire nodded, her face pale. Victoria addressed the room. We're issuing a public statement today. Full footage will be released. We will acknowledge our error and apologize to Mr. Marsh. Legal will draft a reinstatement offer with back pay and benefits. Any questions? Silence. Good. Get it done. She left the room and took the elevator down to the parking garage. The Bentley was gone. Moved to storage, probably. The concrete floor had been scrubbed clean. No sign of what had happened. No blood. No oil. No diamond ring lying near the drain. She stood in the spot where she'd fallen, where Garrett had knelt over her, refusing to let her die. She closed her eyes and tried to remember his face. Not from the video. From that moment when she'd opened her eyes and seen him looking down at her with relief in his expression. She pulled out her phone and called her driver. Take me to Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. Garrett was in a shared room on the 3rd floor. The other bed was empty. He sat propped up against 2 thin pillows, staring at the television mounted on the wall. The sound was off. He looked thinner than he had in the garage. Hollowed out. Victoria knocked on the door frame. He turned his head slowly. When he saw her, his expression didn't change. No surprise, no anger, just exhaustion. Miss Langford, he said quietly. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Mr. Marsh. He looked back at the television. If you're here to serve me with a lawsuit, your assistant already tried that. I'm not here to sue you. Then what do you want? She walked to the side of the bed. Up close, she could see the dark circles under his eyes, the way his hands rested limply on the blanket. The IV taped to his wrist. I came to apologize, she said. He let out a short, bitter laugh. For what? Ruining my life? Bit late for that. You're right. It is. She pulled a chair closer and sat down. I should have looked into what happened immediately. I should have questioned the story I was told. I didn't. And because of that, you've suffered. Suffered. He finally looked at her, and there was something raw in his eyes. I lost everything. My job, my reputation. I can't get work anywhere because everyone thinks I'm some kind of predator. My daughter had to hear kids at school call me a bad person. And you want to apologize? Yes. He shook his head, turning away again. Keep it. Victoria didn't move. I watched the full footage, all of it. I saw what you did. How long you worked to keep me alive. How no one else would help. Good for you. I fired the man who leaked the video. I'm issuing a public statement today with the full footage. Your name will be cleared. Garrett's jaw tightened. And that fixes it. You think a statement erases 3 weeks of hell? No, it doesn't. She leaned forward, her voice steady. But it's a start. The door opened, and a small girl stepped in. She had dark hair pulled into a ponytail and wore a backpack covered in cartoon characters. She stopped when she saw Victoria, her eyes going wide. Dad? Molly's voice was cautious. Garrett's expression softened instantly. Hey, sweetheart. Come here. She walked over, keeping her eyes on Victoria. Garrett put his arm around her, and she leaned into his side. Who's she? Molly asked. This is Ms. Langford. Garrett said quietly. Molly's eyes widened further. The lady you saved? Yeah. Molly looked at Victoria, her face serious. Are you here to say thank you? Yes, Victoria said. I am. Molly nodded. Good, because my dad's a hero, and nobody believed him. I believe him now, Victoria said. Molly studied her for a moment, then looked up at Garrett. Dad, I'm hungry. He reached for his wallet on the side table, but Victoria stood. Let me. There's a cafeteria downstairs. What do you like? Molly hesitated, glancing at her father. He nodded. Grilled cheese, Molly said, and chocolate milk. I'll be right back. Victoria left the room and took the elevator down to the cafeteria. She ordered the grilled cheese, the chocolate milk, and a sandwich for Garrett. When she returned, Molly was sitting on the edge of the bed, showing her father a drawing she'd made in school. Victoria handed Molly the food. The girl took it, murmured a quiet thank you, and started eating. Garrett looked at the sandwich Victoria held out to him. I'm not hungry. Eat it anyway, Victoria said. Your daughter needs you healthy. He took the sandwich. They sat in silence for a while. Molly finished her grilled cheese and climbed back onto the bed, curling up next to Garrett. He wrapped his arm around her, and she rested her head on his chest. Victoria watched them. This was what she'd almost taken away. Not just a job, not just a reputation, a father, a family. I want to offer you something, Victoria said. Garrett looked at her warily. What? Your job back, with back pay, full benefits, and a formal apology from the company. I don't want your charity. It's not charity. It's what you're owed. He shook his head. I'm not coming back to that garage. I'm not working in a place where everyone thinks I'm a criminal. Then don't work in the garage. Victoria leaned forward. I'm starting a new program, workplace safety and emergency response training. I need someone to lead it, someone who understands what it's like when no one else will act. Garrett stared at her. You want me to run a program? Yes, you'll train employees across all our buildings, CPR, first aid, emergency protocols. We'll pay for your certifications, full salary, benefits for you and your daughter. Why? Because you saved my life, and because what happened to you should never happen to anyone else. Garrett looked down at Molly, who had fallen asleep against his side. Her breathing was slow and steady. I don't know, he said quietly. Think about it. Take your time. She stood, pulling a business card from her pocket and setting it on the table. That's my direct line. Call me when you decide. She walked to the door, then stopped. Mr. Marsh? He looked up. Thank you for not giving up on me. She left before he could respond. The press conference was held the next day in the main lobby of Langford Tower. Victoria stood behind a podium, flanked by her legal team. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. She raised a hand and the room quieted. 3 weeks ago, I collapsed in the parking garage of this building due to a cardiac event. A mechanic named Garrett Marsh performed CPR and saved my life. In the days that followed, Mr. Marsh was wrongly accused of misconduct. Edited footage was released to the media, and his reputation was destroyed. This was a failure on the part of Langford Industries. It was a failure on my part. She looked directly into the cameras. Garrett Marsh is not a criminal. He is a hero, and I am here today to publicly apologize to him and to set the record straight. The screen behind her lit up. The full footage played. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Garrett's face tight with focus. The security guard standing back, doing nothing. When the video ended, Victoria spoke again. Effective immediately, Langford Industries will be launching a company-wide emergency response training program. All employees will be certified in CPR and first aid. This program will be led by Garrett Marsh. We will also be establishing a fund to support workers who face retaliation for doing the right thing. No one should ever have to choose between saving a life and protecting their career. She stepped back from the podium. The question started immediately, but she didn't answer. She walked off the stage and took the elevator back to her office. Claire was waiting. The phones are ringing off the hook. Media requests, interview offers. Everyone wants to talk to you. Forward them to the PR team. I'm done talking. She walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Garrett was watching this. She hoped it was enough. 2 days later, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Victoria Langford. It's Garrett Marsh. She straightened. Mr. Marsh. I saw the press conference. And? There was a long silence. Then he spoke, his voice steady. I'll take the job, but I have conditions. Name them. I keep the training program independent. No interference from corporate. If I say someone needs retraining, they get retrained. I don't care if they're an executive or a janitor. Agreed. And I want funding for free CPR classes, not just for your employees. For anyone, community centers, schools, whoever wants to learn. Victoria smiled. Done. One more thing. What? I don't want the money you offered before. The $500,000. Mr. Marsh, use it for the fund. The one for workers who get retaliated against, people like me. She felt something tighten in her chest. You're sure? Yeah, I'm sure. All right, when can you start? Monday. 6 months later, Garrett stood in a conference room on the 20th floor of Langford Tower, demonstrating chest compressions on a training dummy. 20 employees watched, taking notes. Some were mechanics, some were security guards, some were executives. He didn't care who they were. He cared that they were paying attention. 30 compressions, he said, his hands pressing down on the dummy's chest. Hard and fast. Don't stop until help arrives or the person starts breathing. You get tired. Your arms burn. You keep going anyway. He stepped back, wiping his hands on his jeans. Any questions? A woman in the back raised her hand. What if we're not sure it's safe? What if we get sued? Garrett looked at her. You won't get sued for trying to save someone's life. And even if you did, that's a problem for lawyers. Your problem is making sure someone doesn't die on your watch. The room was quiet. Next week we'll cover choking and allergic reactions. See you then. The employees filed out. Garrett packed up the training dummy and his materials. His phone buzzed. Text from Molly. How was class, Dad? He smiled. Good. See you at home. He left the conference room and took the elevator down to the lobby. As he walked past the reception desk, one of the security guards nodded at him. Good session today, Mr. Marsh. Garrett nodded back. Thanks. He stepped outside into the cool evening air. The city moved around him, cars honking, people rushing past. He'd been invisible here once, just another contractor in a basement garage. Now he had a name, a purpose, a daughter who was proud of him. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photo he'd taken last week. Molly holding her certificate from the first community CPR class he'd taught. She'd insisted on being in the front row. He put the phone away and started walking home. Behind him, 50 floors up, Victoria Langford turned from her office window. There was work to do. But for the first time in years, she felt like she was doing something that mattered. A life-saving breath in a parking garage had changed everything. Not just for her, not just for Garrett, but for everyone who would learn from what had happened. Everyone who would be trained. Everyone who would be ready when someone needed help. She picked up her phone and called her assistant. "Schedule a visit to the Brooklyn Community Center next week. I want to see the CPR program in action." "Yes, Ms. Langford." She hung up and opened her desk drawer. The diamond ring sat there, the one she'd dropped in the garage, the one security had found 2 days later, cleaned and polished, and quietly returned to her. She took it off her finger and placed it in the drawer next to the first one. Some things were worth more than diamonds.